Good day, grade 10s, and welcome to today's session. We will be looking at our grade 9 revision on journals. So, today we're going to specifically look at our CRJ, CPJ, DJ, and our CJ. So, grade 10s, we are going to use our Study and Master textbook, and we are in chapter 6, activity 6.9. So in this activity, they ask us to draw up the journals for Simon Stores for March 2018. So before we look at our informations, I always go and make certain notes on my journals for myself, which will indicate the double entry for each transaction, meaning our accounting equation. What is the account that we will debit and credit for a specific transaction? And then also how that will help me to post later on in our next session to the general ledger. Okay, so if we first look at our CRJ. So the CRJ is when we receive cash. So making certain notes for myself. When we receive cash, we know that we receive that money in our bank account, meaning my bank needs to increase. Bank is an asset, and the only way an asset can increase is if we debit it. So I'm only going to debit bank in my CRJ. The rest of the columns I'm going to credit except for cost of sales, because cost of sales will have its own rule. So we will credit our debtors control, we will credit our sales, and we will credit everything in the sundry account. Now for the cost of sales, the purpose why we have cost of sales, and great things you need to remember that sales and cost of sales always goes together. So they are each other's friends. Okay. So the moment you see a sales transaction, you need to remember there's always a second transaction, which is our cost of sales. So for the cost of sales, this is where we go and taking out our trading stock to show this item that was sold. Don't have it anymore, so I can't show the trading stock in my books anymore, and we account for the expense so that I'm able to calculate my profit and loss. So for the cost of sales, we credit the trading stock to take it out of the asset, so we're decreasing my asset, and I'm going to debit the expense cost of sales. For my other notes in my CRJ. So if we look at the first column, this is our source document. So in the CRJ, we only get 3 source documents. So it's either a CRR, so our cash register roll. So this is when we receive cash for sales or a service that was rendered. Then we have a duplicate receipt. So when we know the name of the customer, we will write it on the receipt, give it to him, and we will keep the duplicate. And the third one is a bank statement. So when the money is paid directly into my bank, that's my source document that I'm going to use. Then for the details, so the details from whom did we receive this money. So either we will write the name of the person or the institution. If it is cash sales and we don't know what the name of the customer is, we will write sales. Or when we render a service and we don't know what the name is, we will say services rendered. Right, so that is my details. Then for my analysis of receipt. So for the analysis of receipt, I like to refer to this column as being my till. Okay, meaning will I receive the money in my hand to put in my register, so my till? If so, I need to write in the analysis of receipt column. Only at the end of the day, then we will go and take all the money in the till and then we bank it. Okay. We don't bank the money after each transaction, only at the end of the day. Okay. That is my notes on my CRJ. Moving to my CPJ. So this is my cash payment journal. Okay. So when we make payments, our bank balance will decrease, meaning I need to credit my bank. Okay, because the only way an asset can decrease is if we credit it. So my bank column will credit. The rest of my columns will debit. So what did we buy? What did we pay for here? So we will debit our trading stock, debit creditors control, debit stationery, and we will debit all the transactions in the sundry accounts. Then for my source documents, so for the CPJ, we only have two. So either it's an EFT, so an electronic payment, or we can pay cash, so withdrawals, or it can be a bank statement. Then the name of the payee, again, who did we pay? So the name of the person or the institution. And if we don't know what the name is, we will use cash as our name of payee. Moving to our third journal we're going to look at today is the debtors journal. So the debtors journal is used when we sell on credit. Okay, so very similar to the CRJ. Difference is in the CRJ we physically receive the money, but this DJ is it's on credit. We will only receive it later. Okay, so again, this is credit sales. The moment we hear sales, we need to remember always there's cost of sales applicable. Okay, so therefore I will say that I have sales and cost of sales in my DJ. So sales will have its own rule. Sales is an income, so we need to credit the income, sales, and we need to debit now. This money was not received yet. So we can't debit bank as we did in the CRJ. So we will go and debit our debtors control to show they still owe us the money and we will receive this in future. Then looking at my cost of sales rule. So cost of sales, exactly as my CRJ. We don't have the trading stock anymore, so we need to take it out. We credit the trading stock and we debit the expense cost of sales so that I am able to calculate the profit or the loss that was made on that transaction. The document for our debtors journal, we only have one source document, and that is a duplicate invoice. So we give the original to the client and we keep the duplicate of it. And then the debtor, we will write the name of the debtor. Our last journal for today is the creditors journal. So the creditors journal, similar to my CPJ. Difference, CPJ is when we physically made the payment, and creditors now we haven't paid for it yet, so we've purchased this item on credit. Okay, so the money won't come from my bank. I will need to go and show that I owe this creditor money, and creditors is a liability for me. So meaning if I owe them, the liability would need to increase, and the only way we can increase the liability is if we credit it. So I'm going to credit my creditors control and debit the rest of the items. So I'm going to debit trading stock, debit my stationery, and debit all the accounts in my sundry account. Regarding my source document, for the creditors journal, we only have one source document, and that is the invoice. So we get the original, and the creditor, they will keep the duplicate. The creditor, we will write the name of the creditor in this column. Okay, and that is all my notes that I make for myself before I analyze the transactions. Okay, later on, as I've mentioned now before, when we post to the general ledger, you will see how my notes here is going to help me to determine on what side of the creditors ledger do I need to post. So let's go and look at activity 6.9. So they gave us the transactions for March 2018. And on the first, they told us here, we bought goods for 10,000 Rand less 7% trade discount from Luke Traders. Okay, so we bought goods from Luke. They didn't tell us whether we bought it cash or credit. So if they don't tell us that it's cash or credit, we always need to look for a source document. Receive their invoice number XZ12 and renumber it to number 46. Okay, so an invoice, when we receive an invoice, it means that we bought on credit. Look here in my creditors journal, my source document was an invoice. So this transaction was on credit. So the first one in our CJ, our source document, so this is invoice and it's number 46. We've renumbered it. Okay, I'm never using the invoice number that is on the invoice itself because in my account, I want all my invoices to follow one another. Therefore, we renumber. So the next invoice will be 47, 48, and it will continue. Okay. So the date of this transaction was on the 1st, and we bought the goods from Luke Traders. Now for the amount, how much do we owe them? So we bought these goods, meaning trading stock, for 10,000 less 7% trade discount. So a trade discount is a discount that everybody will receive, whether you are buying it cash or on credit. So before you come to the till and they give you that final invoice, they will need to subtract that discount. Okay, so we need to go and calculate our amount here. 10,000 is the original invoice. 7% of that amount will be discount. So we calculate that 700 Rand. So how much is the final invoice? 10,000 minus the 700, which gives us 9,300. So in my creditors control, I owe them 9,300, and we have purchased goods here, meaning that's the trading stock, 9,300. On that same date, we had sales according to the cash register roll, 2,100, and they gave us the cost price. Okay, so sales, either it's cash sales or it's credit sales. So they didn't say it's cash or credit, but they gave us a source document according to the cash register roll, meaning my CRR. CRR is a source document that we use in our CRJ. Okay, so therefore I know this is a cash transaction. So in my source document, CRR, the date of my transaction was the 1st. We don't know the name of the customer, so we call it sales. Now, did we receive the money in our hand to put in the till? They didn't tell us that this money was paid directly into the bank. So yes, we did receive it in the till. So in my till, I'm going to write 2,100. And then I look at my information. There was no other sales or cash transactions on that date. So at the end of the 1st, I will close my till. So we always draw a line to show we are closing it. And then we take that total amount, 2,100, to the bank. Okay, for what was this? This was for sales. So in my sales column, 2,100. The moment we see sales, we need to remember cost of sales. So the cost price of this item was 1,400, which was given to us. So grade 10s, I just want to remind you from your grade 9 EMS work as well. Remember, a cost price or selling price can be calculated using my formulas. So I must always give you either one of the two with your gross profit percentage. Okay, then you will be able to calculate your cost of sales or sales. Right. On the 3rd, sold goods on credit to the following. So we sold on credit. That's a DJ transaction. So in my DJ, firstly, we sold to Layla for 1,720, and they gave us the cost price, and we've issued invoice number 32. So in my DJ, this is a duplicate invoice, so I can use the abbreviation invoice number 32. The date was the 3rd. We sold here to Layla. That's the debtor's name. And then the sales amount, that is what she owes us, 1,720. And the cost price of that item, 1,376. Then we sold to Govan for 1,215 and the cost price. So again, source document is now number 33. I don't need to write the abbreviation again because it will always be duplicate invoice for the rest. The name of the debtor, Govan, the selling price, 1,215, and the cost price, 972 Rand. Let's look at our transaction on the 5th. So we purchased stationery from King Supplies, 450 Rand on credit. Okay, so we bought on credit, meaning this is a CJ transaction. So in my CJ invoice, so we continue with our invoice here, number 47. The date is the 5th. We bought these goods from King Supplies. How much do we owe them? We owe them the 450. Okay, what did we buy? We bought stationery. So in my stationery column, 450 Rand. Transaction on the 9th. We received a payment from Layla, 2,300, in part payment of her account, and issued a receipt number 59. Okay, so we have received a payment from Layla, meaning this is a CRJ transaction. So in my CRJ, this was a receipt, so I will go and write duplicate receipt number 59. The date of the transaction is the 9th. We received the money from Layla, which was a debtor. We saw it there at number 3. How much did we receive? 2,300. We gave her a receipt, meaning she paid cash in the store. So yes, I did receive the money in my till. Looking at my transactions on the 9th, sold goods to Bridget on credit. So there was no other sales or cash transaction that was received. So therefore we closed the till and 2,300 will go to our bank. Okay. Now this was a debtor who repaid her account. So in my debtors control column, 2,300. Right, on the 9th, so sold to Bridget's 5,600 on credit, and they gave us the cost price. So when we sell on credit, this is our DJ transaction. So in the DJ, it will be duplicate invoice number 34. The date is the 9th. We sold to Bridget. The selling price was 5,600 and the cost price 4,480. Transaction on the 10th of March, repairs were done to the business vehicle for 1,450 on credit. We have received an invoice from Max Motors. Okay, so this was done on credit. We still owe them the money, meaning this is our CJ transaction. So in my CJ, we continue with our source document here, number 48. The date was the 10th. These repairs were done by Max Motors. The total of that invoice, 1,450. That's what we owe them. This was for repairs. So we look here in our columns. We don't have a repairs and maintenance column. So in the sundry account, 1,450, and then repairs and maintenance. Okay. We usually only have one account for them. Okay, so it's not just repairs or not just maintenance, repairs and maintenance. Our transaction on the 15th made an EFT number 77 to King Supplies for 3,200 for the following. Okay, so we made a payment for stationery, 150, trading stock, 1,620, and then the remainder was in settlement of the account on the 1st of March. Okay, so we bought stationery, trading stock, and we made a part payment on our account. Okay, so when we pay the same supplier, remember, if you go to Makro, for example, and you buy 5 different items, you are only going to pay them one amount. Okay, you're not going to pay them 5 separate times. Okay, so same here. When we go and show a payment, even though we made different payments here, we still need to show, but how much was the total that came from my bank? Okay, so in my CPJ, an EFT was made, so our source document EFT number 77. The date was the 15th. We paid King Supplies, that's the name of the payee. Okay, so in total, we paid them 3,200. Right, so the stationery, 150. I have a stationery column, 150. My trading stock, I have a column, 1,620. Okay, so for the remainder, how much is left of the total that was paid? So on the 15th, that total was 3,200. 150 was for stationery, so minus, and 1,620 was for trading stock. So the remainder balance was for my creditors, which is the 1,430. Right, so you will see that my total is always equals to all my accounts that was debited from your CPJ. On the 18th, we bought the following on credit, so we bought on credit from King Supplies. Stationery, 2 chairs at 185 each, and then a computer 5,700. Okay, so when we buy on credit, this is a CJ transaction. So source document number 49. The date is the 18th. We bought it from King Supplies. Okay, so how much did we buy in total? We need that one amount. Remember on the macro slip, how much did we buy in total? So we would need to go and calculate this. Okay, this is on the 18th. So we bought stationery, so 275, plus we bought 2 chairs at 185, so 2 times 185, plus we bought a computer, which is our equipment. So if we add that up, it will give us the total 6,345 Rand. Okay, and that's the total we show in the creditors control. For the rest of the columns, we now go and show, but what did we buy? So we bought 275 stationery. So we do have a stationery column, 275. Okay. Then we bought 2 chairs. So very important, 2 times 185. So in my sundry account, 370, and that is for my furniture. 5,700 was a computer. So in my sundry, 5,700, and computers is classified as our equipment always. Next transaction on the 22nd, the owner, Simon, withdrew 1,500 cash for its own use. Okay, so when the owner withdraws cash, so taking the business money, we need to see this as a payment. Okay, remember, the owner will receive the money, but we are always doing the accounting records out of the business eye. So the business is paying that money to the owner. Okay, CPJ transaction. So in my CPJ, so he withdrew it. So at the ATM, so my source document will be a bank statement. The date was the 22nd. The name of the owner, so we have it, it's Simon. How much did he withdraw in total? 1,500. Okay, when it's for personal use, we know this is called drawings. So we don't have a drawings column. So in the sundry account, 1,500, and this is my drawings. My next transaction on the 25th. Okay, we paid Max Motors by an EFT for 8,425 in settlement of his account. Right, so we made a payment, so this will go to my CPJ. So in my CPJ, it's an EFT, so we will continue. This is EFT number 78. The date of the transaction is the 25th. We paid it to Max Motors. How much? 8,425. This was to settle the account, meaning we are paying a creditor back. So in my creditors column, 8,425. On that same date, we made a second transaction there. So another EFT was made to Luke Traders for 500 in part payment of the account. So part payment of the account, we are paying a creditor here. Okay, so same as Max. So EFT number 79, the date is the same, so we don't need to write it in again. We are paying Luke Traders 500 Rand from the bank. So he's a creditor, so in my creditors control 500 Rand. Then our transaction on the 28th, so cash sales, according to the cash register roll, 1,980, and they gave us the cost price. So cash sales, we did receive the money, CRJ. So in my CRJ, this was our CRR, is the source document. The date is the 28th. This was for sales, so we write sales. CRR, we did receive the money in our hand. So in my till, we've received 1,980. Okay, no other transactions happened on that date, so I will close my till, and in my bank column, 1,980. This is for sales, so in the sales column, 1,980, and then the cost price was 1,584. On the 29th, Simon, so remember Simon is the owner, decided to increase his capital contribution by making a direct transfer into the bank account of the business, 10,000 Rand. Okay, so Simon made a payment to the business. Okay, so the business received this 10,000 Rand. Okay, grade 10s, I don't want you guys to get confused because this is a common mistake that is made. We always need to do it out of the business eye. Okay, the business is receiving the money. If the owner is making payments, the owner is not the business. Okay, so this is a CRJ transaction. It was paid directly into my bank account, so my source document will be a bank statement. Right, the date was the 29th. We received the money from Simon. Okay, direct into my bank account, so we won't receive the money in our till. Okay, so I can't write anything in my analysis of receipt. So directly in my bank column, 10,000 Rand. This was to increase his capital contribution. I don't have a capital column, so in the sundry account, 10,000 Rand, and this is my capital. Then our last or the date of transactions, made an EFT to pay for the salary to Zunaid, who earns 5,000 Rand per month. Okay, so we made an EFT, meaning we've made a payment, CPJ transaction. So EFT number 80, the date was the 30th. We paid Zunaid, that's the name, 5,000 Rand. So from my bank, 5,000. This was for salaries. I don't have a salaries column. So in my sundry account, 5,000, and my details or my account is salaries. Okay. When we work with salaries, remember there's a difference. We also get wages. Salaries is paid at the end of each month, so that's usually a fixed amount. Wages can be paid on a weekly basis, and the amount might not be fixed. Okay, they get paid per hour or per day that they worked. Right. On that same day, a portion of the shop was let to Claire at 1,050 per month. Received the rent for 1 month. Okay, so we have received money here from Claire for rent, so CRJ transaction. So we will give her a duplicate receipt because we know what her name is. Won't be a cash register roll. That's usually the till slips. We don't have any information about the client. So yeah, it will be duplicate receipt. We follow with our number, so that will be number 16. The date of the transaction is the 30th. We have received the money from Claire, and this money was not received directly into my bank, meaning I did receive it in the till, 1,050. No other cash receipts on that day, so I close my till, draw the line, and I bank it, 1,050. Okay, this was for rent. I don't have a rent column, so 1,050 in my sundry account, and this is my rent income. Okay, please, grade 10s, look at the account name. It's not rent received, rent income, and the expense is called rent expense. Okay, and there we looked at all our transactions. So last thing we need to do in the journals is to go and get our totals. Okay, so in the CRJ, we add up all the amounts in my bank column. So my total, debtors, 2,300, sales, those two added together, cost of sales the same, and then my sundry account, 11,050. Okay. When we get totals, remember, we always indicate in accounting that your debit side is always equals to your credit side. So the amount that I have here for my bank on the debit side must be equals to all the credits added together. Okay, but remember, cost of sales was not credited, so I can't include the cost of sales amount. So that amount of bank will be equals to 2,300 plus the sales amount plus the sundry account. Okay, we never include the cost of sales amount. Then for my CPJ, so same, we go and add up everything in my bank column, trading stock, creditors control, stationery, and my sundry accounts. Debit side should be equals to your credit side. So bank was credited, meaning that total will be equal to all my debits added together. So when we don't give you, for example, the trading stock balance at the end or the total, but you do have the total for the rest, you can calculate this. The total for bank minus your creditors, minus stationery, minus sundry accounts. Okay, so you need to be able to calculate missing values as well. Debtors journal, so we only have two columns. We simply add those three amounts together, and then my CJ, we add our amounts together. Right, but in the CJ, we had one credit, the rest were debit. So again, debit side is always equals to your credit side. So the total of my creditors control will be equals to all the debits added together. Right, so grade 10s, that is how we do our journal. So analyzing each transaction, identifying source documents. So source documents is very important for me because I know certain journals has certain source documents. So grade 10s, in our next session, we will be looking at how do we take the journals and post it into our general ledger. Until our next session, goodbye grade 10s, enjoy the rest of your day.